Okay, you guys, so what we're going to do now is transfer our markings and on our front bodice piece, okay? So right now what we're going to do is grab our ruler and our chalk, and we're going to transfer these pleats, okay? So basically what they've done here is added some little notches for you to know where your pleats are, but since I've made an adjustment here and I'm dropping my waist, I need to come down some. So I'm going to use my ruler to show how I'm coming down. And that's it. I just want to make sure that I'm maintaining the pleat size here with my ruler. Okay. So what I've also done, because my print, you can't really differentiate the right side from the wrong side of the fabric, I've marked the wrong side of the fabric on all of my pattern pieces. So what you want to do is fold your pleat, your fabric on your pleats towards the center front. So here's your center front, here's your sleeve area, boom, here's your waist. Fold this way to make your pleats. So I am touching the top notches here. And I want to make sure that these lines are touching. Get your pins. And you want to just fold. Fold that excess fabric down towards your center front. Boom. Line up those lines at the bottom and just pin it down. And here's your pleat. So you'll do the same thing for the other two. Is just snatch it up, match up the circles, match your lines, fold. Sorry if you guys can hear my husband in the back. He's playing his Call of Duty. Don't know if we have any other gamers' wives in the house, but I am a gamer's wife. Pray for me. Just kidding. But yeah. So you just want to make sure that you are lining up those lines to keep the integrity of the pattern right there. And there you go. And what we'll do, we will sew along those lines later. Hopefully you guys can see this. So for the last one, same thing. Just pinch, fold it down. And I'm going to pin at the top of that dot through all of those layers of fabric. And here's my line here, my line there, and I just want to make sure that those are touching. Gosh, I'm so embarrassed by him cussing in the background. Okay. So there you go. We have formed our pleats for the front bodice. Like I said, we will sew from the top dot down to the bottom shortly. We are going to repeat this process for the other bodice front. Sewing, what you're going to do is make sure your machine is on a basting stitch. Take out your first pin and you are going to raise it up. Raise up your fabric just to make sure, ouch, don't poke yourself. You're going to raise up your fabric instead of sewing it down to the bodice. So, like I was telling you before, you're going to start at where that first marking begins. Like I said, we're going to base this. And just sew it all the way down. So there's our first stitch. Just a basting stitch. And don't let yours come out like I did. So now we're going to do the same for the next 2 pleats on this one. And start at the top. So I'm actually going to back stitch right here. Second pleat is in. And what it's going to look like at the end is you're going to have your, we're going to iron this down. Let's get this last one in first before we start talking about the next steps. Spaced all the way down. Okay, and this is our bodice one piece. Can you guys see that? Those are our pleats, and we are about to sew up the second bodice front, and then we're going to iron. To be continued. I've just sewn up the second side. This is the front of the pleated bodice. Bam. Okay, here's the back, and where all of our markings and stitching is. Something we're going to do is just baste down the pleats at the front. So you want to make sure that all of your pleats are facing you or going towards you, and you're just going to baste down the bottom just to keep them from coming apart. The machine should still be on your basting stitch, and just go ahead and baste all the way down. So I wouldn't sew anything further past the third pleat. It's not necessary. And you'll do that with your first one, with your other side as well. Just baste against the bottom. Okay, so that's it. Now what we're going to do is take this to the iron, and we're going to iron these pleats down so that it's a crisp look. We want it to pop. Poppin' pleats. Poppin' pleats. Okay? All right, you guys, we have stay stitched pattern piece number 2. We're about to attach pieces 1 and 2, which is your bodice front and your sleeve. Okay? So here we go. All right. So you want to have your pattern pieces facing right sides together. So remember, we've marked our wrong sides. Boom. So that way you know which way is the wrong side, and the unmarked piece is the right side. So I like to actually start with my notches first. And boom. So, and this one doesn't match up exactly, right? So there's a little hang time on number 2. So I'm going to stretch number 1 to meet at the ends. And then just pin. My husband always interrupts me. I'm filming. Okay. So, all right. So number 1 pattern piece has a little curve to it, right? So you just want to keep aligning up your number 2 to the number 1 and just pin. Luckily, this fabric does have a little bit of stretch to it. Excuse me. So you just pin around the curve. If you're working with something that's not as stretchy, I'll show you a little trick to pinning around a curve with fabric that's not stretchy. And this is a trick that I use quite frequently. Grab your scissors. So the curve, you don't want to mess with because it's already curved, right? So you might want to snip. Actually, I'm just going to snip both. Boom, around the curve. So that way when you're sewing, it'll come out straight. Just for you to sew, and then it'll bounce back. I don't need to do that. It's already stretching a little bit. So stitch within your stay stitch. So here's your stay stitch, I'm sorry, which is 1/4 seam allowance. Stitch within it, but don't break your stay stitch. Okay, so now we're about to go sew. All right, you guys, we've pinned our pieces 1 and 2, and we are about to sew. So your seam allowance is going to be 5/8 seam allowance. I have my number 2, my sleeve actually facing down. So before I start, remember you're going to have this little piece. The instructions show you a little piece that's flapping because you can't, you're not going to put that together. But I am going to start sewing at that little crease. Ooh. Make sure you're at 5/8 of an inch before you start. And back stitch. And just maintain your 5/8. Don't sew over your pins, because you will break some stuff. And then back stitch at the end. So now you have attached, here's your front of your garment. Okay, you've attached your sleeve to your bodice front. You want to do that to the other side. And then the key to any good fabric is ironing to any of your garments that you want to be successful. Make sure that you follow the instructions, and then iron down your creases. So before we iron, and I'll show you this at the next step, we'll open this out and then iron. All right, guys, I'm about to do that to the other side of my bodice front and sleeve. So I'll let you guys get to it on your end, get to sewing. And if you have questions, don't forget to comment below. Bye, guys.